You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Podcast Network. Find all of our shows at wearelibertarians.com. You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Learn more at wearelibertarians.com.
Welcome to the Boss Hog of Liberty podcast on the We Are Libertarians Network. I'm your host, Jeremiah Morrell. As always, I'm joined by our co-host, Dakota Davis. Hi, Dakota.
What's going on, Jer?
Well, we're here to have some fun. We got Dear Leader here. It's like when your teacher is watching you day. You know, you got the teacher and the principal in the back of the class. That's what we've done. We got ourselves almost suspended, and Spangle's here to watch us. So we gotta stay on script and not get in too much trouble.
My rider was not fulfilled. We'll talk about that after the introduction.
All right. This show is about our lives in rural Indiana. It's a show about folks who are involved in politics. We promise that our episodes are going to be a fun and an easy listen. We interview people who are influencers, elected officials, political experts, and folks that we do just find interesting. Today, our signature guest is Lane Siekman. Is that the way you pronounce your name?
That's it. That's right.
Lane Siekman is running for Congress in the 6th Congressional District in basically eastern and southeastern Indiana is the district.
Right.
Well, you traveled all the way up here to us. We're in the far northern part of the 6th District, and you're from, literally, you throw a football across the river and you're in Kentucky.
Actually, you can. I'm from Ohio County, which is the smallest county in the state of Indiana. The 6th District covers 19 counties in southeastern Indiana, running all the way from Shelby County, clear down to Jefferson County and Madison, clear all the way over to the Ohio border. So it's a large expanse.
Yeah. Well, we're glad you're here with us today. We're excited to get to know you and learn about what you're working on.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. And on the other side of the room is Chris Spangle, the founder and editor and just policy wonk in chief of We Are Libertarians. You've been on your winter break. This is a rare appearance for you.
I try not to leave my apartment.
As people watch their Snapchat and their Facebook, you're mostly taking pictures of cats and burning $80 a rick firewood.
Listen, you can get a 6-pack of compressed firewood, compressed sawdust for $2 at Menards, and that gets you at least 2 fires. So, and then you make fun of it because you could drive out to Newcastle and get yourself a load of firewood for $35. Yeah, I'm gonna drive 2 hours. So how much gas is that? I would be driving farther than this poor soul had to drive up for this interview. And then I would have to put it in the back of a Chrysler 200. Not exactly but yes, I've had a great winter vacation. I'm enjoying my time. I'm at the point, so we have December 15th through January 2nd off. The first week I don't want to talk to anybody. The second week I'm like, okay, I'll see some people. And then by Saturday I will be scratching at the walls going, I need a friend. And then I know Jeremiah will be there.
So for this Christmas break, I've actually seen you more than Dakota. I've seen Dakota has been the one that's been busy in a way, and you and I hung out on Friday night down at Morty's Comedy Club in Indy.
Had fun.
We listened to our boy Jeff Vibert.
Taunted him.
He did his set where we heard about how he picks up stuff at the curb.
That classic 2013 material.
That's right.
As I like to call it.
But people love it now because he's famous over on Barstool.
They don't know that we've heard it 500 times and he hasn't written new material in 10 years.
Yeah. So what? Everybody's back from Christmas. So you've done your Christmas, your family Christmases, Lane?
Not yet. Actually, we're going to do Christmas this weekend.
There you go. Very cool. Dakota, we were going to do a gift exchange, and I have to punt because I left your gift for you at home. It's under the Christmas tree. So we're going to hold on to that, and we're going to do it. I appreciate it. We're going to do it as an Easter egg.
Let me open it.
Separately.
Let me just
We'll do it later.
I'm
just going to peek.
Spangle's going to look and go, ooh.
I'm just going to peek. So we'll show.
Hopefully it's a $100 bill.
Smells like it.
Yep.
Okay.
There's actually 2 gifts in there.
Oh, wow.
One is from me and one is from Clay Morgan at MVP
Very
Barbershop.
nice.
I didn't get Clay anything. But I am a very avid customer.
Well, you didn't have to. You shouldn't have said that. Now you can go.
Yeah, now that you knew, you could have gotten something.
I got Clay something.
Yeah.
It's very nice.
We'll let Clay continue his sabbatical, and that's our gift to him. we're keeping him on the host page until he decides he wants something to do with politics again.
I saw you two got a puppy. Are you sharing a puppy?
We did a Mike and Frank deal. If you've been listening to the episodes,
No,
Chris,
I never do.
you would know this.
No.
Yeah.
But
We've covered it very extensively.
yeah, basically we did a Mike and Frank bundle, from American Pickers, where they go and they put a couple things together and make a deal.
Right.
Down in Fayette County, we had Connorsville area. Some friends of ours or friends of mine had a litter of Australian Shepherd puppies, and we said, "Hey, will you take X?" And they said, "No, but we'll take Y," and that was close enough to X that the ladies in our lives said, "Yeah, we're getting puppies."
I was like, Jeremiah, what is your dog doing here? And Dakota goes, "That's mine." And I was like, is it like a co-parenting situation where Dakota has them on Thursdays, or
They have shared custody.
right?
I've been making the joke with Sarah that I'm a single puppy dad 5 days a week because she's in Mooresville until the weekends. So yeah.
If only you would ask her to marry you.
I did.
What?
I did.
Oh,
yeah.
well, this is very exciting.
I'm very committed.
I really should listen to this podcast.
Yeah, you should. You should check in. Oh man. So what'd you get, Dakota? Anything cool?
I got a Amazon Echo.
Did you?
So that was really cool.
Alexa, listen to We Are Libertarians.
Yeah. You can tell it.
That'll
You
work.
can,
play.
and it'll go to TuneIn Radio.
The
and-
NSA appreciates that thing.
Yeah.
Oh, we will ask you about that
Oh,
shortly.
okay, sure.
No. I'm excited to hear that you're calling out the NSA. You're my kind of Democrat already. So I think we're going to find a lot of common ground, believe it or not, on a libertarian
Probably
show.
so.
I think there's a lot
Probably
of places we're going to have some common issues. There's other ones where we're going to call you a devout socialist, like our friend Darren Jacobs, and that's fine too.
Jared's a friend of mine.
Yeah. Corey Murphy and Darren and some of those guys they're all very good friends and friends of the show. So, Aaron Dickin's been on here last week. Melanie Wright, who's an elected state representative, was on the show. So yeah, we really are friendly to all sides, and I know this show is about dialogue and having conversations with people, and
that's what
it's not flamethrowing.
Right.
Yeah. So, but we will have fun too. So don't forget to call me something too before the show is over.
Yeah,
or I just won't feel like we're friends.
We already have a token socialist for the show. That's Darren Jacobs. So we can't give you that nickname.
Spiceland's finest.
That's right.
He is.
Darren has to run for re-election every 7 years, whether he wants to or not.
Because there's nobody else to do it.
It's a complicated story, but but he'll listen to this in his office and yell at me later. Yeah, so I love Darren. So you got the Amazon Alexa.
I did.
If you like it,
it's really neat. It can do. I didn't realize all the things that it can do if you have smart gadgets in your house and smart lights and things like that.
Did you find yourself going out and buying a bunch more smart gadgets to make it all work?
Not yet. I have enough for now, but now I do definitely want some. I want all the lights in my house and want to convert my outlets over and stuff. Just have a full smart home in Newcastle, Indiana, north of Q Avenue.
Be the one guy.
Yeah, be the one guy up here, and when people walk in, this is actually a smart home if you have your Amazon Echo.
We were smut chatting. What the hell
We
does
were
that mean?
smut chatting.
We were smut chatting. No, we were small chatting, Spangle and Dakota and myself, and we've talked about the Alexa. And the first one I ever saw was at Jeff Ribbert's house probably 2 years ago when he got little Nora Jones at his puppy party, and we were playing music off of that.
The puppy shower.
The puppy shower. Yeah,
he's gonna have a puppy shower.
No, it's not scheduled yet. Maybe if our good friend Dear Leaders throws us one, we'll have a puppy shower in January.
All right, let me know what day I can do that at your house.
Yeah. I don't know if you'll wear a robe to that or not, like you did the last time. But yeah, so I saw one there, and I think this is the year they're going to catch on because I actually bought one myself. I bought one for my future mother-in-law, the Amazon Home Mini. They're they were on sale. So I bought 2 more yesterday for myself. I'm like, well, if Libby's going to have one, I have to support it. So now I have to figure out how it's going to go.
Yeah, the Google and the Amazon stuff, people my age, which I had seen. I had one and I sold it to a pawn shop because it didn't do anything, but that was 2 years ago. Right. So now it's different. There's more things you can do with it, I guess.
Yeah, I've had the Chromecast audio where you can take any stereo you have and make it, make it a Wi-Fi capable device. So I listen to podcasts while I'm doing dishes or cleaning the house or doing whatever, and then I've switched over to where I have the regular Chromecasts on my TVs. That's how I watch YouTube TV now. I don't have cable or a traditional cable. So this was like the next step because I would find myself yelling at it, Chromecast, pause, and it wouldn't work because I've had the Xbox and it does. So now I've got the NSA listening device as well. So we'll see how it goes.
Nice.
It's exciting. So Santa brought me a new DeWalt 20-volt impact and driver set. So I don't have to borrow any
How
tools
did the
now.
elves manage that?
I don't know. It's a miracle.
It's a Christmas miracle.
It's a Christmas miracle.
The elves, does Santa have a lithium mine at the North Pole?
I think he has some sort of a deal with the walls.
Sadly, Hillary sold them to Roscom, so it's the elves are all implicated in the scandal. It's terrible.
I'm sure the Russians are involved somehow.
Okay.
So Chris, you've spent the last 3 or 4 days holed up at home and fighting the war on Christmas all by yourselves.
Well,
Dakota wants an update from the front
know
lines.
that.
I think it's important that we all take a moment to have a moment of silence for all those who were lost in this year's war on Christmas. Which I just think that there's been a bunch of memes going around about how it's an actual war, which I just find to be really. This is why I love the internet.
You shared a picture of an internment camp of some sort, of a bunch of yard elves behind fences.
It's several hundred of those light up plastic snowmen
They look like
inside
POWs.
somebody's fence, and somebody on my Facebook lives down the street from it, and it's here in Indiana, of all places. Can you believe
Really?
it? Yeah.
That is hilarious.
I just, the whole thing, it was all started by Bill O'Reilly several years ago when, some employee at a Target or somebody said they got fired for saying Merry Christmas, and then Bill O'Reilly, for ratings, stoked this whole idea of the war on Christmas. And now Donald Trump is saying that people are saying Merry Christmas again because of him.
There's been healing in America.
Thank the Lord. Thank the Lord. We can all say Merry Christmas now because the president has stood up and said we can.
Do yourself a favor and YouTube search America First PAC. Thanks, Trump. And it's this 30-second commercial that I saw on Fox last night that is basically all these people saying, thank you, Trump, thank you, Trump. At the end, it's this little girl that goes, thank you for letting me say Merry Christmas again, which is just the dumbest thing. And there's so many people out there who are just so into this idea of the war on Christmas. And I get it because it's a reactionary swing because of political correctness, and that's all the Trump movement is about, is fighting this idea that we're going back to a better time that never really existed in reality. It wasn't a better time. Actually, this is the best time to live on the planet Earth. We're talking about smart devices that will turn off your lights, that you can be across town on your phone and turn the heat on in your house.
Yep.
We live with better medical services than Henry VIII did.
I haven't checked now that the net neutrality thing has come
Right,
back in.
yes.
I don't know if I can actually
Right.
get to it. I haven't tried since I've left the house.
And that's just part of the problem is the hyperbole and how over dramatic people on the left and right have become. Every time Trump wakes up and tweets in the morning, society's gone to hell. And then on the right, it's the liberals are stealing Christmas from us. But it just speaks to. But then there's this whole group in the middle who love memes, and they're taking to task the hyperbole of the left and right, the propaganda.
I've been following. The whole reason that is even in the show notes is because I've been seeing your Facebook updates about the war on Christmas and. How many, does anybody have a total number for how many lives were lost in this year's war on Christmas?
10 p.m. on Christmas night, only 2 hours left to fight the battle in the war on Christmas 2017. It ends at midnight, and then someone said, well, not on the West Coast, we get 3 more hours. I was you're godless commies. No, you don't. God's time is Eastern time.
And Hawaii had all kinds of time left. You're just shutting them out.
I know. So, yeah, I think
God's time is Eastern time. That's pretty good.
I think next year, if you're buying meme stocks, go heavy. I'm doing a Jim Cramer buy.
Bulls and Bears
I'm
with Spangle.
doing a full bull on the war on Christmas memes next year because it's going to be lit, fam.
You got to have them ready. You're going to be like an auto manufacturer. We start building them in July for the fall December fall rollout.
I just disseminate memes. I'm like a memes dealer. Okay, I don't actually create the memes. I just go to places in Argentina and then say, here's where the memes are. You can buy them for $1.
So let's pivot to Lane. Do you have a memes team in place? Because when I was running Rex Bell's campaign for governor, we legitimately had people that were responsible for memes.
I don't have a memes team. I've done a few of them in the past. I played around with them, but I don't have a team. No.
Yeah. Once you get through the primary,
through the
we're
primary.
gonna have to get you a team.
We're going to have the social media wizards and getting out there constantly and snapping and chatting and whatever
Right.
you were doing.
Just get on your Facebook and say, I'm looking for a dank meme crew. Apply here. Dank meme crew.
Okay, I'll
and
Google
then
that and figure out what that is.
that's basically like a dog whistle for the
That's
millennials and Gen Z. They'll know what that means.
That's right.
Yep.
They'll hunt you down. So something's gone horribly wrong when we picked up a little thing on this microphone here. We'll jiggle it, and I think it'll be all right.
I'll move around a little bit.
It's problem solved.
That's all right. Shake him around. He'll be
That's
all right.
right.
He'll be all right.
We got it back. So Lane, you're not new to politics in this area by any means. You've run in the past in 2012 or 2016.
I started to run in 2012 when it was an open seat the first time after the realignment. I grew up in the 9th District.
Yes.
And in 2010, did the realignment in Indiana, redistricting, and we became part of the 6th District. And, why are we in the 6th District? What does Rising Sun, Indiana, have in common with Newcastle, Indiana?
Do you also have a failed Chrysler factory? Did you have a Chrysler factory in Rising Sun?
Never had I had a Chrysler.
You had a Chrysler,
I never had
yeah.
a Chrysler factory, but it wasn't failed. It was just phased out.
Yeah,
over time,
that's true.
Yeah.
Life moves on and everything moves on. But we're a little bit different down there, a little more attuned to the Cincinnati market. We're southern. They say south of US 40 is when southern Indiana starts, and we're way south of US 40.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit different. But when we did the redistricting in 2012, I started to run, and then I pulled out of the primary. I actually never filed that year because Brad Book out of Muncie was running. And
Yep, I remember Brad.
And believe it or not, there's a lot more people in Muncie than there is in Rising Sun. I didn't know if you knew that or not, but
Well, the populations are catching up.
they're catching up. We only have 70 or 80,000 to go, so we'll be close there, I guess, at some point.
So Rising Sun is you grew up there in the pre-casino era, right?
I grew up there all my life, so
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. So how is that different? Was the casino really like the big change that you needed, that the community needed?
I was city attorney when the casino legislation was passed in Indianapolis, and we looked at the opportunity, and nobody thought about Rising Sun when they passed that bill. They said there's going to be 5 on Lake Michigan, 5 on the Ohio River, and they went down the major cities on the Ohio River. You got Lawrenceburg, Madison, and further on down. And we said, hey, look, this says you can have a casino if you're on the Ohio River and you're a county. And here we are, we're Ohio County, with the smallest county in the state, about 6,000 people in the entire county. And we got together and we got busy, and it's actually a bipartisan effort. A lot of local people worked hard to get that casino down there. And the changes in the community, they've been tremendous. We never had a swimming pool.
Yep.
Well, now we have a public swimming pool. Now, everybody else is like, well, yeah, you got a swimming pool. Well, yeah, that's great. We had a city hall where literally the ceiling had caved in on the building. We weren't using it anymore. We built a new city hall. We built new fire stations. We have fire trucks. We have all the things that everybody else took for granted, we finally got because of the casino.
Yeah, I've stayed there. I had a bachelor party I went to last year, and we had there's 2 hotels there now,
There's
right?
2 hotels. There's the main hotel, and then they built what they call the lodge now.
Yeah, across the street.
Across the street.
Yeah, good golf course there.
18-hole links-style golf course. Even though it's links and there's no trees on it, you can still lose your golf balls in that pretty.
Yeah, there's deep grass and bunkers that are 40 feet
I know
tall.
it's here somewhere, but it's gone. So.
Yeah, if you haven't had a chance to do that yet, Dakota, it's worth it.
There we go. I play golf the same exact way. I start out the game with 6 golf balls, and by the end, if I have 1 left, I'm doing pretty good. I do have 1 golf ball that's still in the bedroom, though, and it is one that I played from hole number 1 to hole number 9 with the same ball and didn't lose it, so it's like a piece of memorabilia for me.
See,
It's in the Dakota Davis Museum.
Yeah.
I keep a ball dispenser in my pant leg, so every time I have an unfavorable drop, I just drop one right on the ground. It's perfect.
What's your
I think
preferred
you should
brand?
patent
I like a good noodle. I don't know what you like, Spangle.
Titleist.
Whatever they got on sale at Big Lots.
Yeah.
That's what I get.
Any of the X outs, yeah.
It's got XXX.
Yeah,
That's all I know.
old range balls.
Good ones.
Non-discriminatory. So you graduated from Rising Sun, and then you came up to this part of the world, and you went to school.
Went to school in Muncie at Ball State University, studied finance and economics.
Okay.
Graduated from there, a long time ago, and went back and got into the banking industry, worked in the banking industry for a few years, and then decided to go back to law school.
Okay. Very
Ball
cool.
State, my sister is going to be a Ball State alumni in 3 years. So she just started.
What he's saying is she's a current student.
She's a current student.
She's a freshman this year.
Well, I'll tell you how old I am. My daughter is a graduate of Ball State, so we have the second generation there. So I appreciate Ball State. I think it's a great college, a great university.
Did you go to school with Papa John or David Letterman or any of those guys?
I was after David Letterman. If Papa John was there, I didn't see him. I don't know if he was at school business or not.
Yeah.
I think he was the one. Never mind. Just in case you guys ever have a Papa John sponsor, I won't say it.
Well, he's not there anymore.
He's the CEO now.
Yeah.
He's head of the board. He's out of the active management because everybody was taking a knee or something. I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah, that was so funny.
He got himself wrapped up.
Yeah.
Silly.
So then you practice law. Is it like we've had have we had one or two attorneys on? I know Sean Rao was on, and I can't remember if we've had others on or not now at this point. We've had so many guests.
I think it was just Sean.
So Sean is the public defender for Henry County, or one of the public defenders. In a community like Rising Sun or Ohio County, I'm guessing you're a bit of a jack of all trades. You're handling everything.
You have to be. They call it a county seat practice, and you do a little bit of everything. I did public defense work probably about 15 years. I do criminal defense work, real estate work, and divorce work, which is not fun. Sometimes they keep raising the price. If they want to pay me, fine, I'll do it. If not, it's not my favorite.
They can find somebody else.
I do a little state practice, and then I represent a lot of government boards and agencies and so forth.
Okay, so is that full time along with your work for economic development, or I'm guessing in a
part-time.
In a town like that, it's all part time, right?
It's just a matter of which hat you have on that day. The economic development work it sort of floated into working out of being a city attorney. We created an economic development corporation, and then I got involved in that, and we had trouble keeping people there, so I just picked it up and put that hat on as well.
Gotcha.
Oh, cool.
So what kind of things are you guys able to accomplish, or what are you seeking? Because it's a somewhat controversial thing in some circles that I know in Henry County we have a shell building, and there's different incentives and things that come into place. Tell me a little bit about what that role is.
Well, we have a business park which we created on the edge of town, and we have land in that park which we make available to developers to come in and open up a business. We've created a small factory there called OMI, which is actually Odor Management Incorporated, and we've expanded it 3 times. The first time we did it, there was a lot of incentives. We put in low-interest loans. We worked through the Farmers Loan Administration to get a business loan to create that. Second time, we just basically helped them along through the process, through the state of Indiana, what are called EDGE tax credits and everything. We try to do anything we can to help someone create real jobs in our community. And there are a lot of people who will show up with their hand out saying, oh, give me this and I'll solve all your problems. Well, you have to read through that. I had a guy who was a biodiesel guy, came in and said, oh, we can create this biodiesel plant and so forth. Did a little background check on him, found he'd been bankrupt in another state, found a couple of things. It's just basically let's go to the next town and find the next handout. So you got to be careful about that. But really, we work with people and try to customize our incentives to the individual company or firm that's trying to locate there. We don't have a major interstate. We don't have a railroad. We don't have a lot of the things that people are looking for big developments.
So you're telling me that if I move to Rising Sun, I'll never be caught by a railroad?
You'll never be caught by a railroad. You might have to hit a few deer here and now. But
see, I think that is what people look for, is not being caught by a railroad.
Well, individuals do, but businesses don't. We're working right now. We actually worked with a regional group to help do a phase study for a port in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. We actually, it's a southeastern Indiana port. The governor has it on his agenda. That's an intermodal project where within 20 miles we'll have a port where you can come off the river, go on the rail, go on the trucks, and so forth. There are already 3 others in the state, and we think the 4th one in southeastern Indiana is a good opportunity for us.
I think that's something that Governor Holcomb identified in his campaign, he was talking about trying to locate one in Lawrenceburg.
He has identified that, but the first phase of that study through the ports of Indiana was paid for by the Ohio County Economic Development Group.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, very cool. So you're running in the 6th District. Tell us about how the campaign's gone so far, the events you've had, what the field is. I think are there at least at one time I looked and there were 2 other Democratic candidates. Is that still where the field's at, or do you know? I know there hasn't been filing yet, right?
Well, they say there's 4 Democratic candidates, but one of the candidates is a guy from Beverly Shores up by Chicago, who I think I've done some research on him, found out he's a bit of an internet prankster. And likes changing his name.
Hate those guys.
He likes changing his name. I mean, I looked at it and said, why is this guy from Chicago running for Congress in southeastern Indiana, and I think it's just a game. The two other candidates, Jim Pruitt of Greensburg and Janine Lake of Muncie, are both candidates as well. And I've been around to every chicken dinner there is.
Yep, you've been to Jefferson Jackson Days and everything
Jackson
else.
Day dinners, Wilson Day dinners, Obama Day dinners. We've been all over to meet the people in the party.
And some Birch By dinners too, right?
One Birch By dinner
There
down
you
in
go.
Switzerland County. And that was a good dinner. That was chili. It wasn't
There's something
It
different.
wasn't chicken.
It's
There
good
we go.
Who had the best chicken?
I don't want to say it because I don't want to offend anybody. That's politics, folks.
Just wanted to see how experienced you were.
That's right.
Good. So, or do you guys have any debates or forums scheduled at this point, or is it just a matter of trying to, like you did this once before, and it's really just you've got to find a way to get a base and get people out to the polls.
In 2012, I didn't run. 2014, I did file and ran, and I lost.
Yeah.
It was a three-way race that year, and honestly, the lady that beat me didn't do anything in the primary, and her name was number one on the ballot. And that was the year we had 17% turnout in the state.
So basically, you need to change your name legally to A. Lane Siekman.
Lane Siekman, yeah.
Yeah, I saw that. There was only what 8,000 people that turned out for the primary in 2014.
It was a little bit more than that, but it was still, you could get 38%, 39%, and then you'd be a clear-cut winner.
Yeah.
And there is I think it's 3% advantage to being first on the ballot.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to remember, in a primary, sometimes people don't vote just because my knee again.
Sorry about that.
I got too long legs. I'll move around here. In a primary, people don't vote necessarily because they're interested in your race.
Right.
They vote. You got it?
Yeah, they vote
we're
for.
I hear the hum.
Yeah, I remember in 2006, I grew up in Hendricks County, which is out by the airport in Indianapolis on the west side. And in 2006, they just canceled the primary because there wasn't anybody running on the Democratic side. There wasn't anybody running against the incumbents.
Nobody of any race.
It was just going to be a very, very low turnout. So they just canceled the primary. I think it was 2006.
That happens a lot in city races and things like that. There's just no interest in getting out there. But in that race, people just didn't have it high on their expectations. And I had people come up to me afterwards, assuming I had won, and said, I said, did you vote for me? He said, well, I just kind of forgot about it.
Yeah.
Well, thanks.
Every candidate, I've got this in the bag. I'm like, we're Libertarian Party people. We don't have anything in the bag. but you don't understand. Everybody's come up to me and said that they voted for me. I was like, those people are lying. It's tough running for a local office because you have no big information to run on, and it's just kind of all anecdotal, and it's really just how many hands you can shake.
So what have you heard from voters as far as their issues? What are people wanting to talk about, or what are they interested in? Is it an entire Trump election at this point, or is it are there key issues that you're wanting to talk about that people are receptive to? What's been driving it?
Well, what drives me and what drives voters, that's what we have to find out. People are talking about Trump. Trump has made people really, really upset in the Democratic Party, primarily because they're kicking themselves for what happened in 2016. But on the other hand, there are people who are really concerned about the actions that Congress has been taking, primarily with the health care issue. The tax issue, I know there are people upset about it. I think it's going to be a wash for a while. I do have some problems with the tax reform bill that went through, but I think we're going to have to play that out and see how far it goes.
Can I ask in what way people are kicking themselves in the local Democratic Party?
Well, look at the states that Trump won. He won Wisconsin. He won Pennsylvania. Those are states which, basically, Michigan. Hillary Clinton didn't bother to go back to Michigan. Mm-hmm. They're kicking themselves because a lot of them, went away from the fold. There was a bit of split over the Bernie factor early in the primary. I mean, people were upset. I mean, we live in a country where people have the right to change their mind and have the right to be upset. And every 8 years or so, they want us out with the old and in with the new, and that's understandable. And it's hard to follow an 8-year term president. I mean, that hasn't really happened a lot.
The Democrats haven't reelected anybody since World War II, or picked a second, a vice president or continued with the party.
The last one the Republican did was George Herbert Walker Bush, and he didn't last but one term. So I think there's a tendency that everybody in this country thinks there's always something better coming, and we need change. Change is good. And Hillary Clinton didn't provide that impetus to the party, didn't excite people.
Is there the Democratic Party? I mean, a lot of Trump's voters are disaffected white rural voters.
That's right.
I mean, are you running into a lot of people who voted for Trump who are looking at you or looking at local Democrats? Are they bi-party voters? I mean, or is it just that group is moving further to the right as you kind of get out there and talk to that key demographic?
Last year during the election, I saw a pickup truck at the polls, and on one corner of it said Trump Pence, on the other corner it said Glenda Ritz.
Right.
Yep. Right.
And there was one voter with 2 bumper stickers. And that kind of told me that they want change. They want proactive change. They want something to happen. And they called on Donald Trump to make that happen. And Trump's done that. He's changed. Everything that Obama did, Trump is trying to change. And sometimes you throw the baby out with the bathwater. I mean, net neutrality. I mean, the push for net neutrality was going on. It was a bipartisan issue for a long time. We need to keep the Internet free and open so that nobody can come in and put throttles on it or slow people down or do this or charge extra or get preferences. And then all of a sudden, oh, wait, net neutrality, those rules are bad, and we need to get rid of all those rules. Well, it was a change, primarily because it was something that happened I believe, under the Obama administration. They just wanted to get rid of it. And a lot of the environmental rules that are being thrown out now are being thrown out because they literally want to change it back over. And
say what you will about
dangerous.
Donald Trump, but he has kept his campaign promises. And if he hasn't proactively done it, he's tried.
He's
and
trying.
People get upset, right? And a lot of these people might be people that voted for Donald Trump, and they're getting upset about like the repeal of him trying to repeal Obamacare, net neutrality. It's like, folks, he campaigned on this stuff.
Donald Trump during the campaign last year told the story about the person who picked up the snake off the ground, and it bit him.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump said,
that.
"Well, you knew what it was. You know what it was when you picked me up."
Yeah.
Well, people knew what Donald Trump was when they elected him, and if he bites them, that's something that they have to expect.
Right.
So on the healthcare side, are you wanting to maintain Obamacare as it is, or as it was before this tax plan came through, or what's your ultimate goal for healthcare? What's it look like if you're in Congress 5 years from now? Where do you want to be? What are you trying to achieve?
Medicare for all.
Okay.
We've got to come up with a solution like 33 other industrialized countries in this world. We've got to provide everyone that measure of comfort that they will have health care. And that's important not only for the people, it's important for businesses. How do you compete with other countries? Healthcare is a huge strain on healthcare is a huge strain on business people trying to pay for it and compete for employees. If I have to go out as a small employer, and I can tell you exactly, the casino in our town, when they came in, they hired 1,700 people.
Yeah.
All right, and they gave them health care. Now, if I'm mom and pop down here on Main Street working every day, and I don't have health care and I can walk right down the street and get a job that gives me health care, I'm going to do that. Well, how does mom and pop compete with that? Mom and pop can't go into the market at that time and buy health care plans for their employees.
Right.
A good health care family plan is $25,000 a year.
But how do you propose to pay for that, though?
We're already paying for it. You go to the hospital and see how much it costs to go to the emergency room.
I understand that.
When people are uninsured, right? If they have, if the hospital industry and the medical industry have a guaranteed source of funding, that is, that everybody comes in the door is going to pay, then they should also agree that they're going to have some controls in place on costs. Also, we got to put costs on things like the pharmaceutical industry. I mean, we grow in this country people who, become customers before they're patients. It's like, oh yeah, you have diabetes. I'm going to treat the symptoms of that diabetes by giving you this medication. And guess what? You become a cash flow for me because you're a customer for the next 20 or 30 years if we keep you on this medicine. Whereas the medical industry should look at it and say, we need to cure your diabetes. How do you do that? You got to lose weight. You got to do this. You got to change your lifestyle. And they can force those kind of things through with health care that's available to everybody.
Right. And I think that's just kind of the fork in the road, or some of the different worldview where,
right.
Many of our people, or the libertarian people, are going to say it's a personal responsibility thing, where you're looking at the common good, or the whole the whole picture, and in wanting to achieve the result differently.
It is a personal responsibility, but I'll tell you, my wife is a neonatal intensive care nurse, and children are born that she takes care of that have pre-existing conditions. They're born into this world with their heart outside of their body or other major problems, and they automatically have pre-existing conditions. And if there's no health insurance coverage for them, it's going to come back on the system anyways. And they're among the most expensive patients that there are. And it's just a matter of risk assessment. We have the risk of all getting sick. You have the risk tomorrow of getting sick and losing your life and your career. Early on when I was practicing law, I did some bankruptcy work. One guy came to me and said, I need to file bankruptcy. He said, why? He said, I work at the bakery over here. I make $8 an hour. I just had a major heart attack, and I owe $65,000 to the hospital. I will never, ever repay that. So I have to file bankruptcy. And he files bankruptcy, and the hospital writes it off. But they don't write it off. They take it and they add it to your bill, and they add it to your bill, and they add it to everybody else's bill. And the whole concept of insurance is shifting the risk from one person to another. Well, in order to do that, you need enough people in the risk pool that you're going to be able to level out those risks. And the biggest way to get the biggest pool to level those risks out is get everybody in the pool.
Is to have a single payer system.
But centralizing it just makes costs rise because you have greater opportunity for theft from that system because of a lack of oversight. And what I would push back on is what you just outlined is a nationalizing of not only the healthcare insurance markets but also the hospitals and a greater responsibility in the government. Mm-hmm. You're placing responsibility on the government to make sure that I am healthy, that I'm not going to BW3s after this, that I'm not going to make the wrong decision. So then the logical conclusion to save costs is, well, we need to start cracking down on the food industry. We need to start, so at what point do you draw the line and say this is the government's responsibility, this is the person's responsibility? Because we don't have the amount of Medicare already makes up the greatest chunk of our deficit spending, and so by increasing that, that makes the debt problem exacerbated, and there's also that philosophical problem of where does it stop? I mean, so that's kind of what I'm saying in pushing back is where do you draw the line? Well,
first of all, Social Security and Medicare are not the biggest part of our deficit spending.
Probably defense spending, but
right,
it's on the list.
Social Security and Medicare, they're not entitlements. They're actually investments that we've made. You pay a tax for Social Security out of your paycheck. You pay a tax for Medicare out of your paycheck that comes out already.
I'll make a deal with you though.
Right now,
if you let me, if we call it even and just let me stop paying into it, I'll get out today.
Okay, you'll get out today.
You keep what I've paid for 18 years, and I'll just keep that 7% myself and invest it, and I think I'm going to come out ahead.
Well, I paid up a lot more than that, so I'm not getting out.
You don't have to cut the deal. I will.
Let's talk about those costs and things. We already have this outfit called CMS, which oversees Medicare and oversees a lot of the different controls. When we go into hospitals, Medicare and Medicaid to a certain extent are already determining those costs and procedures. It's already in place. And you realize Medicare has a 2% administrative cost. You know what the closest private insurer's administrative cost is? It's 4%. Medicare is the most efficient provider of health insurance we have in this country right now. And it seems hard to believe, but let's look at the empirical data and look how it's been working.
What happens to the doctor that says, I don't want to charge what the Medicare rate is for something. I want to just say I'm not taking any insurance at all, and I want to be like, who's the doctor on Spiceland Pike here in town?
Mm-hmm. Dr. Dinklage.
Dr. Dinklage, and I want to just say, hey, it's $35 for an office visit, and we'll go from there.
He's already done it.
Right.
Let him do it.
So at that point, you just opt out.
We're not going in and messing with health care. We're just talking about reforming health insurance and making it something that isn't in itself its own profit industry. And I know that, believe it or not, health insurance didn't start out as a for-profit concept. Blue Cross Blue Shield started out as a mutual aid, a co-op. Well, what happened in the 1990s, all of a sudden we took these mutual aid corporations and turned them into stock corporations. And when they became stock corporations, and then all of a sudden prices actually started going up because the purpose of a corporation is maximization of shareholder wealth. That's the purpose of a corporation. It's not to provide you with health insurance. It's to make money off of you. And by gosh, if you're the person who goes to BWs after this and you have certain health risks, we're going to charge you more for that. And more and more and more and more until you can't afford it. Because we're not going to lose money when you have that heart attack.
So another big issue that you've been talking about, best I can tell, is education in your campaign. And you have an education background. You actually work with Ivy Tech, right, or have in the past as an adjunct professor?
I still am. I'm an adjunct instructor, I guess they call them at Ivy Tech. I teach business courses, business law. Cool. I've taught management. I've taught marketing, taught introduction to business. I taught statistics one semester, but that was enough for me.
I took statistics once at Ivy Tech, and that was enough for me too.
He started listening off all of his classes, and I could see the hats just piling up on top of it.
Every one of those classes, I have an associate's degree in business management from Ivy Tech, so I literally think I took all of your classes, just not with you.
Not with me. You didn't come down.
That's right. I took them in Shelbyville and Indianapolis.
But I've taught those classes, and it's great. I actually started at Ivy Tech when I was waiting for the results for my bar exam. And I just kept teaching thereafter. And it's great because you get 3 hours a week or whatever the class period is, and those people can't leave the room and they have to listen to you.
They're just trapped.
and they're trapped in the room and they can't get away. So it's an awesome feeling.
Sort of
right
how
there.
I feel right now.
That's the way I treat most of my friendships.
It's an awesome feeling. But education, public education, I'm committed to public education. And I know there's a lot of discussion from the Milton Friedman School of, right to choose and all that. Using vouchers and using charter schools and so forth. I can tell you right now, in my community, there's one school. Our choice is one school. Now, you can move to the next community, or you can bus yourself or whatever, or drive somewhere else and go to school. So what we have to do is we have to have a commitment to make public education the best investment we can in this state, because it's always been strong in Indiana. We've always had great public education in this state.
Indiana has always been one of the leaders in the nation.
We've always had that.
It's in the Constitution.
So if you are sitting in Congress,
yes,
what's your role in education as a congressman for the people of Indiana?
To get as much money back into our educational system so that we can have the best facilities and the best teachers that we can. And, I'll take some heat off of the loyal Democrats about this. I think the Department of Education should just be turned into a checkbook. Instead of having people there making rules and tests and things like that, why don't they just block grant education, Department of Education money to the states?
There's a lot of money that's lost in the bureaucracy that we could be using to educate the children.
Yeah, so just block grant it back to the states and make sure that we can pay our teachers what they're worth. Because right now we have a teacher shortage in the state of Indiana. We have a teacher shortage because they're not paying enough people to go 4 years of college and then get a master's degree to go work for $28,000 a year.
So Justin Stevens is watching in the live feed, and he says he wants to know.
I know Justin. He's a friend of mine.
Yeah,
Hi,
absolutely.
Justin.
He's sat in that chair before. Probably 2 months ago, 2.5 months ago,
right
somewhere.
Now.
That's him. He's banging on the door. Justin says,
Wait,
"Hey,
the Koch brothers around." Hey guys.
Well, they're up at your alma mater up there. That's the Koch.
Oh.
You're graduate of the Koch school.
Oh, Dr. Hicks and Dr. Bohannon. I actually had Cecil Bohannon as a economics instructor at Ball State, and I don't know. He's changed. So I have too, though. So that's okay.
That's all right. We're all growing some way or another. So Justin wants to know: is 55% of the budget enough for public education in Indiana, or do we just need a bigger budget all around? What's the the ratios here.
Well, ask Justin how much the corporations got in tax refunds here this year, as opposed to how much they paid in taxes. I think the difference is about $2 million or something like that. Is it 55% enough?
I think
probably not.
You kind of answered
places.
that though whenever you were talking about the Department of Education, and
that's federal money, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you've got 55% of the state money plus federal money that's flowing back.
If he would take the money that we're giving to vouchers, if he would take the money that we put into charter schools and put it back into the classroom and to the teachers and to the provision of education, 5% is plenty. Yeah. But we're not doing that. We're spending our money at testing. We spend millions of dollars every year hiring outside contractors to come in to come up with tests. Well, you know what? They gave me a test when I graduated from high school was, can you get a job or can you get into college? That was the test.
Yep.
When I graduated from high school, I wasn't going to go to college. I went and got a job working at the local plastic plant running a mold, and I did that long enough to decide I probably should go to college. And when I turned around 2 years later, decided to go to college, I had to go back and take an SAT. I had to go back and do all those kind of things. But I could do it because I had a good education. And it wasn't because of a test. It wasn't because of any guidelines written by somebody in Indianapolis, because I had good teachers and good people who were working in that school to make sure I knew things that I needed to know.
Well, a lot of the emphasis on testing comes from No Child Left Behind, which was passed by the Bush administration, which left a lot of unfunded mandates, too, which is a huge part of kind of what you're saying, which is just do block grants, which I have issues with those, but for the sake of this argument, let's get rid of the public. Let's compromise. If we can get rid of the Department of Education, then I'll do block grants. But I served on the HAVA Commission, the Help America Vote Act Commission, and I was this lone libertarian voice. And we had 8 things that we were mandated to do by the HAVA bill, but they gave us money for 2.
Right.
And that happens, in talking to Todd Rokita, who was Secretary of State at the time. He's like, oh, this is across the government. I mean, education, election systems.
Any function you're in. I had the same thing happen when I served on the public park board here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a constant where the federal government makes these rules and changes things and then doesn't fund it properly, and then the rest of us are left going. I mean, to me, that's the greater crime than charter schools. Like, the amount of money that is spent on Common Core and other federal regulations that we now have to comply with, that's the greater loss of revenue than a charter school. I mean, to me, choice is always the better option. There are definitely problems with charter schools. Like, I tried to I'm actually right now the head of a charter school.
You started your own online school?
I tried to start my own charter school, but it was impossible because we were about 3 years too late, because big corporations had already taken over the market and had bought off local politicians. Yeah,
imagine that. People found out that 51% of the state's budget was or 55% is being spent on education. Let's get into the education business. Let's create little schools run by our corporations.
But to me, the ISTA, the Indiana State Teachers Association, my views are not the views of this man. Let me make that clear. ISTA is a very powerful union, a lobby. I mean, and so you can centralize schools, but you're then going to deal with the teachers' unions. You're going to deal with a lot of other voices. So getting rid of the choice doesn't get rid of the interest. The interest is always there. Everybody is involved in government because they're self-interested. It's how do you set up the interest to make sure that it's most equitable to everyone. And, that's why I have to push back and defend charter schools a little bit. It's these federally mandated rules that are unfunded that have really hurt education as much as anything. So, I mean, would you go to roll back things like No Child Left Behind? Where do you stand on things like Common Core and some of these federally mandated rules on local schools?
Well, I think Common Core is pretty much dead at this point. I think enough movement's been made away from that. The schools aren't required to do what they were previously. No Child Left Behind starting to be chipped away as well. I think it really is a question of making sure that we have great public education. And, charter school can be a public school, and it can be utilized in certain ways. But, we have a history, again, in this state of having this great public education system where we've trained astronauts and engineers and all these things in the past. And then all of a sudden someone said, well, we got to make it better so that we can compete. And it's not working. We need to get back to the basics in education, make sure it's properly funded, make sure that every community has good facilities, and make sure that everybody takes a role in their education. One of the things teachers say is a lot of what happens to these kids happens at home. A kid comes in the morning, we got to give them breakfast because they don't get fed at home. They don't get taken care of at home. I mean, we have a huge opioid epidemic in this state right now, and mom and dad are out shooting up, and the kids being shoveled around from relative to relative. Yep. Luckily, if they have a good relative that steps in or a grandparent or someone that steps up and cares, they get that opportunity. So we look at and we say, okay, here are these at-risk kids. We need to do some things for them. We need to help them along. But we have to get back to the basics of saying providing with a good public education. Everything else that comes along is topping on the cake, so to say. But we make sure we get back to those basics and make sure that teachers are paid well and schools are maintained and that we provide the core money that we need to educate our children.
I know from firsthand experience, my fiance is a teacher who lasted about 3.5 years or 4 years. And then because of the way that they're judged based upon the test score, she was third grade, so she was the first year of standardized testing, and she backed away. And I know countless teachers that are 25 to 30 years old that made it 2, 3, 4 years, and then they just give up. So you have this constant churning of teachers, and the pay's obviously not great anyway.
The pay's not great.
But then the environment's not wonderful either.
Well, the support's not there either. I mean, we have great school boards in our communities. We have good people involved in our schools. But, there are some problems. Look at the Muncie school system. Obviously, Muncie's running into some major financial issues, a lot of them self-inflicted because of the education system they have up there. But that doesn't mean we give up on public schools. I mean, we need to provide that core educational basis to every one of our students. And I think that's something that builds our future.
Yeah, Muncie had 3 years ago, I think they had a busing issue where they tried to adjust the property tax caps and raise their number. And the voters said no, and that was pretty much the end of their financial story because after that they had to continue doing busing at no charge.
That's right.
And they knew that they had a problem coming. They closed schools, and still, so many of these communities in this district, Muncie and just over the border in the 5th district of Anderson, these old automotive towns where you've had populations that were 100,000 people that have shrunk to 70. But you're still trying to have city services and infrastructure that's the size that it was before. You don't have the tax base.
You're trying to run like it's the 1950s, 1960s, 70s.
Yep, absolutely.
You had these structural opportunities built up, and it's changing. The world is changing, and we need to be, responsive to that and have a dynamic system that can, interact and take advantage of that.
So if we have some of these cities in the district that are aging a little bit, infrastructure is another thing that you've talked about on your webpage. Both broadband to the house to the homes. I know that's something you've talked about. Fiber to the premise, like fiber to a home, which we have here in Newcastle actually through Metronet and some other areas. I think North Vernon has it, and some other places in the district have it. But then also, you look at every town's got to have updated water treatment plants because we're dumping into the rivers, and because of the EPA regulations, lots and lots of sewage projects are going on all over the district. Big road funding issues, water lines. You saw what happened in Flint. So you have 80 or 100-year-old water systems that have water breaks. You're going to see water mains breaking over them. Sorry to Greg Phipps, but the next 2 weeks here for the city of Newcastle are going to be awful with the water lines. Is that something that you see a role in from a congressman's spot, that you have a role in that, or is that a local issue where that's left to them? How do you fit into this?
Well, Congress can help. First of all, in terms of broadband, the United States is 17th in the world in broadband coverage, and Indiana is 34th in the United States in broadband coverage. And in the rural areas, it's hurting to go that last mile, to go to the house. And it's not just watching Netflix and chilling. It is having access to high-speed broadband so that people can be an entrepreneur, so they can put studios in their home and broadcast to the world, so that they can run businesses, and so students can sit and go on those internet schools and do those kind of things right from their home. They can't have snow days. Instead of having snow day, the teachers there on the internet, we have school on the internet. And we need to catch up with the world about that.
You just lost the vote of everyone under the age of 18.
You know what? I'm willing to risk that this year.
You'll make that trade.
I'm willing to risk the snow day vote. I'm willing to risk that.
This man wants to remove your snow days.
But the other part of the infrastructure is the federal government's always taken a big role in rural infrastructure. Farmers Home Administration would come down with grants and low-interest loans to provide water systems to communities, solid waste, not solid waste, but wastewater sewage systems and all those kind of things. And that's an important part of that. And we have to keep the Department of Agriculture involved in rural development.
All right. So the other side, I guess, another big deal in our area. Energy is something that you don't think of as a rural issue, but solar and wind have been massive topics of discussion, particularly in the northern part of the district.
Yeah, that's been huge here. Basically, pretty big with a lot of our listeners, too. A lot of them are against wind credits. I work for a power company, so with my background, with my electrical background, I really am interested by renewables. I think that they're really cool, but there's been nothing but backlash.
Well, you're getting backlash because of something called NIMBYism. Not in my backyard.
Yep.
I don't want a windmill in my backyard. I think they're dangerous, and there's all kinds of studies one way and studies the other way, whether or not they create dangers to neighbors. But you got to look at it as a question of property rights. If I own my property, I own a bundle of rights in that property, the ability to do things with it, the ability to dig up holes in it, mine it, the ability to farm it, the ability to grow crops on it and all that. I'm not going to pick it up and move it somewhere else because that's not what you do with land. But when you have adjoining property holders and you're looking at something on your neighbor's property and you think it might affect your property, well, that's where zoning laws come into play. And zoning is purely a local issue.
Right.
I was in Randolph County, actually at one of those Democrat dinners, and I went into Randolph County right at sunset, and I saw the windmills in the distance, and I thought, I want to go look at those. So I drove around to them, and they were picking corn right underneath the windmill.
Yep.
And the windmill was moving around. It was quiet. It was standing there. And actually, with the sun setting, it was pretty neat looking.
You mean there wasn't a shadow flicker?
I don't know about
there
shadows
wasn't a shadow,
or anything like that.
A giant shadow?
I
couldn't hear it?
I-
Did a bird get destroyed by one day?
I did not hear it, but, I'm not saying that people don't have the right to be worried about them. I'm just saying that's a local issue, and every county and every community is going to have to make the call on that. Wind is a viable prospect. I mean, there are supposedly in this country more people working in the wind industry now than working in the coal industry.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a growing industry. I don't think wind is as important as solar, and particularly where I come from, down in the hills. We don't have windmills down there because the wind doesn't run all the time. It doesn't come running across the plains because we have hills. So we're looking down there at solar plants. I know Indiana Municipal Power Association is making most of its client communities, not making them, providing incentives to most of its client communities to put in solar parks in these communities. And they're doing that because I think there's some mandates that they got to go to a certain percentage of renewables as part of their production capability. And the other thing is it makes great sense. Why would we not want renewable energy in this country?
Yeah. Part of the problem with that you get, though, speaking as someone from the inside, is how expensive it is to store that energy.
It is.
And if you can somehow store it, then sometimes you will fill your battery source, right? Your solar panels will fill a battery source. So that happens occasionally down in Shelby County. They have a solar farm down there, and it is tied to a breaker inside of a substation. And because of how expensive the batteries are, and we don't have there's no space down there for a upgraded battery set, because then you're talking about tearing down a building, erecting a new one, then paying for the batteries and everything else.
Right.
So it's hooked to a breaker there. And occasionally, on really sunny days, we'll have to open up the breaker that gets the electricity from those solar panels because it's just overflowing, right? So that kind of ties into the infrastructure.
Well, they just
question.
need to hook it to their Alexa and say, Alexa, shut off the daggone.
Yeah, that's what they got to do.
There are technical issues. Elon Musk supposedly has a solar
my
power
job.
plant he can bring in and drop off. He supposedly
You're trying to take a job away from a union man.
He powered up a hospital down in Puerto Rico within so many days, quicker than the rest of the country has brought electricity back.
Yeah, and it's so
technology.
cheap. Like, solar panels themselves are
getting
extremely inexpensive.
They're getting
Tesla.
inexpensive. I mean, there's ways to store energy, mechanical ways to store energy. You can pump water into a tank and let it come out and run a hydroelectric pump. There's all kinds of things that can be done. We just need to say, look, it's time to move forward on the renewables. And we had a movement forward for a few years. We have a little bit of back movement now.
Yeah.
It's because it's like the people who were shoeing horses when the automobile came in. Oh, we'll never have automobiles in our town or something like that. Well, guess what? Technology doesn't go to rest. Technology is always moving forward.
Yeah, I remember my grandma when Cracker Barrel came to town in the late 90s, erected this huge sign by the interstate, and she was head of the neighborhood association, and they were all fit to be tied about how they could see the Cracker Barrel sign because it was ugly. Like, you live a mile away. What do you care? Well, I just don't like looking at it. There has to be at some point where we just stop catering to the idiots of the world and say, this is what we're doing because it's for our benefit.
How often does Grandma go to the Cracker Barrel now?
Well,
just
not
once
as
a
much
Sunday.
Anymore. But
there is a natural gas generating station in Henry County, and my grandmother told me a story that she said was just like the wind issue. There were people protesting the natural gas facility months before they even got it up and running. and she said that it got out in the local paper the day that they were supposed to be firing up the generators, right? And it's 3 giant stacks,
turbines.
Okay? Yeah, and the I guess Highway 38 was just lined with cars, people protesting out in front of the facility. And as they hooked up the leads for the lines going in and out, then the generators fired up, and then all of the Duke trucks start leaving. All of the guys that were the linemen and people that were working on it started leaving the facility, and all of the protesters started cheering.
They thought it was over?
Yeah, they thought we
thought
won.
they won.
Yeah, we won. And they stopped one of the guys in the trucks and said, "Is it over now? Did we get it?" And he said, "No, it's running right now."
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, so it's. I think that a lot of people are more afraid of what could be without actually knowing what it is.
In St. Augustine, Florida, Flagler College was the Flagler Hotel, and they used to have butlers turn on the lights because people are afraid of the new daggone electricity. Let me ask about the opioid crisis, because you mentioned that, and I know that this is a very important subject, especially in rural communities. I mean, how, in your position in Congress, would you help local communities deal with this?
Well, first of all, I never thought that I would know someone who had died from a heroin overdose. Now I know 3 or 4 people. It's hit every one of our communities, and it hits hard. It hits our families. There's a whole history behind why we have an opioid crisis in this country. It didn't actually start in the drug dens. It started in the doctor's offices. Mm-hmm. You know, people were going in, and there was a push. OxyContin. We're back to that medical question again, but there was a push for OxyContin and other type of very, very strong painkillers. And then they finally said, no more. And then people started turning and going to opioids and things like that. What Congress can do is Congress can make sure that they support the right kind of treatment programs to try to help people get off of this. Actually, there's a company headquartered out of Versailles, Indiana, that makes an electronic device. And if you ever get a chance, look this up on the Internet. They will actually, I forget the name of it, but they actually plugs in behind the ear. And actually you turn it on, and it takes away cravings. So that people don't have those cravings. And then once they get off of they break the cycle, then they have to have constant reassurance and follow-up and aftercare. We don't have that kind of system in this state or in this country right now to provide people with the kind of treatment options they need to deal with it. And it's got to be all hands on deck, because we can't afford to have any more people dying like this. It's a cost for employers. It's a cost for schools. It's a cost for all those children that I talked about. I mean, the head of Indiana's, FSSA resigned because she didn't think she had enough assets to take care of the children affected by the drug crisis.
And then the Indy Star, headline schools ill-equipped with Narcan, which is basically you give them a shot and it neutralizes the effects of the opioid overdose. Mm-hmm. They're not putting this into schools because of religious reasons, which, listen, I'm a Christian, but...
And the school resource officers don't have that? I would think they would have that on them.
I don't know. You have to have a policy in place. I don't know what schools' policies are on that. I know EMTs carry them, firefighters carry them, police officers carry them. You can get Narcan now at a pharmacy without a prescription.
That's great.
It's expensive, I think. It's probably close, maybe $100, but you can go in if you've got a family member who you think is going to have one of these problems. You can go in and get a prescription. It's a one-shot thing. You slam it down, and it gives them the injection.
It's like an EpiPen.
Saves them. But there has been some backlash again. It said I think a sheriff over Middletown, Ohio, said that they weren't going to waste it anymore because they were wasting so much money saving all these drug users.
Is he the one that said we'll use it 3 times and then we won't use it anymore?
We won't use it again. I mean, obviously, if someone's had to have it used on 3 times, there's something more serious here. We need to find a long-term solution.
What about looking at what's a Schedule I drug? Marijuana is something.
Marijuana.
Yeah, that's an issue that's going to be hotly contested here in the next couple of weeks in Indiana with the new General Assembly. From the federal level, is that an avenue you think has merit, or do you think it's more just treatment options? What?
The federal government says marijuana and cannabis is a Schedule I drug, which means it has no medically known use. I mean, it's something that they don't allow because it's not good for anything. You can't even prescribe it if you're a doctor. If you could move marijuana to a Schedule III, then that would allow all the states that have adopted medical marijuana to actually make it legal. Because, and the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, has said he wants to get out and get after the marijuana. Because technically right now, even if you're using it and your state says it's legal to use medical marijuana,
You're
the
still
federal
breaking
government
federal
says
law.
the federal government says it's not. And in the past, I guess back in last May, the federal government, Congress, voted no money for enforcement. But there's always a chance that they'll start going back and trying to enforce it.
Yep.
I think medical marijuana should be legalized. Indiana Department of the American Legion has come out in favor of medical marijuana. I think it should be legalized, and I think the state needs to move forward on that. Illinois does it, Michigan does it, Ohio's going to do it. We need to be in there.
Yeah, we're getting down to the last 10. The last 10 or 15 states.
Yep.
We're the last one holding out on cold beer on Sundays.
Cold beer on Sundays, not a problem when you live in southeastern Indiana.
That's right. You can get to a wet county in Kentucky or get over to Cincinnati.
Go to
right?
Ohio, literally right across the state line. There's a drive-through, what they call pony kegs over there. You drive through, you tell them what you want, they hand you the beer, you drive back home.
And Indiana misses out on those taxes.
And there's no tax money to the state of Indiana.
Well, of course, you have to pay that use tax when you file in the spring. I'm sure everybody does.
Yeah.
He's a real Hoosier because he said Versailles, not Versailles. That's a southern Indiana. All my family's from Knox County, and if anybody got caught saying Versailles, they were given a talking to.
We had an Italian exchange student last year at our house. We had one from Italy. We had one from Spain.
Did you take him to Milan?
You want Milan?
Yes.
She goes, "Oh, there's a Milan here." I said, "No, it's Milan." Okay.
Let me show you the Bobby Plump statue.
That's right. The last shot.
So very good. That's I thought we were going to get that answer out of you on marijuana. I always pick on once a week we get some sort of a story from the Indiana State Police or the PACE team on I-70 here, and I say it's some poor tourist that was traveling from Oregon to Massachusetts,
right.
And they had 100 pounds of a perfectly legal product in their car, and then they find themselves in the Henry County or Hancock County jail.
They had an herb they were growing in their kitchen garden. So
I spent 15 years as a public defender, and I've had clients that just like to sit around the house and smoke marijuana, and I'm like, you can just move to Colorado, and it's legal. You can move there. And they're like, but I'm from here.
I don't have that motivation.
I don't want to move to marijuana. I move to Colorado.
Jeremiah with the stereotypes. Oh, they're just lazy. They're going to know.
Get up and go.
Right.
There's weeders.
His law firm has bus tickets, one-way bus tickets to Colorado.
Cigarettes.
Yep.
Oh man.
What else you got, Jer?
Well, let's see. We talked a little bit about the fact that you had a tax plan, but the president really screwed that up last week.
He didn't screw it up. I had a 16-point tax plan. I'll tell you, it came from Bernie Sanders. A lot of it. I was a big Bernie fan. I thought Bernie had some great ideas. I thought he was invigorating the party. I thought he was getting people back to it. And when you look at his tax plan, it was around getting away from the deadweight in society that's just basically sucking value out of our economy. And
who are those people exactly?
They're called Wall Street traders. And I don't know any. We don't have any in Rising Sun. We don't even have a Wall Street. But what they do is I was a banker for a couple of years, and I didn't make much money at it because, banking was sort of boring. Your local community bank operated on a margin about like 1%. You brought money in the front when people made deposits, and you sent money out the back when you made loans. And in the margin, you make about 1%, and that's pretty good.
So you worked for just a regional bank, or just like a one town? How big of a banking operation are we talking about?
This is literally before cross county banking.
Okay.
So it was a small community bank, rural bank.
All right, so it'd be similar to like a local credit union you have now, where it's one location.
It's one location, and I guess it was the early 80s, mid 80s, and it was before Indiana came out with cross county banking, and every county had their own bank back then. And I think I don't think that's a good idea because we need to have that value move around and find the best place to put the money. But the neat thing of it was, we didn't have the issues where people would get credit cards and just run bills through the roof. They'd have to come in and tell you why they wanted to borrow money. And you'd look to them and say, that's really not a good idea. And I had people get mad at me when I wouldn't loan them money. I was a loan officer. But they'd come back later on and say, I'm kind of glad I didn't borrow that money. Well, that doesn't happen anymore.
Right.
You don't know your banker. You know your branch manager maybe, but you don't know a banker anymore. We've taken the human element out of that industry.
Yeah, and we've kind of, speaking as a person my age, we've gotten to the point to where like you can't really have a credit score if you don't have a credit card.
That's right.
So I couldn't, I had to have my dad co-sign for my car loan whenever I turned 18 because I had zero credit because I never had a credit card before.
Well, Dave Ramsey's countercultural. I mean, that's why he's so popular. Is that he's almost revolutionary. Your grandmother's wisdom is.
It's not countercultural to go back 20, 30 years and say this is the way we always did it. Why did we change? Well, what happened was people made a lot of money out of banking. And look at the run up until 2008, 2009 and the crash of Wall Street. They were creating products that they were selling based on things that were imaginary.
Yeah.
We'd take a bunch of crappy mortgages, we'd put them together, we'd insure them and tell you that they were Class A investments, and then you'd buy them.
Yeah, but it looked like Jonah Hill's character had a lot of fun in the movie.
He did have a lot of fun in that movie.
What was the movie with Steve Carell on the book that was by Michael Lewis?
Oh, The Big Short?
Big Short.
Yeah. I mean, you watch that movie and the book is just as good. It just makes you so angry, and I love capitalism, and you and I will firmly disagree on our Bernie Sanders opinion, but on this we agree in that this is not capitalism. This is literally people creating assets out of nothing, linked to nothing, and it's gambling.
It's gambling.
You've got mortgage brokers.
Sounds like Bitcoin to me.
It's worse. It's much worse because it's much more entrenched and it's much more devious. And you go to a big investment bank. If you're a client of Goldman Sachs and they call you up and say, "I've got a hot stock tip," it's because the bank knows that they're shorting that stock because it's about to decline, and they're trying to sell you their product that they know is about to tank. And the problem is there's regulatory agencies over this stuff, and nobody's being held accountable. Nobody went to jail in the 2008 crashes, and the oversight that is in place is failing. So I have a hard time buying that more regulatory agencies are going to fix the problem. I think they should. The problem was fixed when we should have let them all go out of business.
Well, we didn't do that because they were too big to fail. And what happened is we've gone in and we've gutted Graham Leach. We've taken away those disincentives. We're getting rid of all the rules we put in place to stop that. We started backing them off. Congress started doing that this year, saying, well, we don't need that because it hurts this person, it hurts this person, it hurts this person. Biggest thing in that tax plan, carried interest deduction. They get a different tax rate than you and I do.
Right.
I can make $1 billion on Wall Street, and I'm taxed at a lower rate than you pay.
Right.
And that's wrong. And guess what? When you're shifting money, and I guess there's a reason why Jesus kicked the money changers out of the temple. When you're shifting money from one pocket to the other, what are you producing? What realistic value are you creating in society other than paper?
You're not employing people. You're not doing things like that. You're literally, like you said, changing pockets.
You're changing pockets. We need to incentivize things like, hey, let's make Chryslers in Newcastle, Indiana again. Let's not make them in Italy or wherever they're making them now. Let's make them in Newcastle, and let's make that the highest incentive we have, and not the fact that we're going to incentivize people to go out and make paper profits on Wall Street.
Right. Different incentives is where we're headed with that.
Tax
where the
policy.
incentives go.
Anything cheap and easy doesn't last.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with our current economy, is
And
everything's cheap and easy.
And guess what? That seems to be the mode that we're moving more forward to. We've got a president. Can you tell me what Trump sells?
Yeah, right.
The only product that he sells are ties made in China. Everything else is his name. He's not a business person. He's a salesman. And there's a big difference. Go to any company and say, okay, who runs the company? Well, we got the CEO. He's in charge of this. But who does your sales? Who's that guy over there? Well, will you let him go out on the shop floor and run that team? No. Why? Because all he does is sell. And he'll do anything he can to sell the next thing. But he doesn't have the basic understanding to make this business work.
So I think we've come to an agreement. Salesmen are terrible.
Well, they're necessary. They're a necessary evil in business.
I'm going to need 5 minutes to speak on behalf of all salesmen everywhere.
They're a necessary element in business, but we have to understand that if you let sales take charge, you're going to lose. The same as if production runs everything. There needs to be some kind of happy medium there.
This is the story of my life right here.
So
Without production, we can't sell anything, and without sales, they have nothing to do.
That's right. And production's based on sales forecast. Yay!
That's right.
So we talked a little bit about the Trump administration and you talking to voters. Do you think that the Trump and Pence being in the White House, do you think that has helped your chances or hurt your chances in Indiana?
I think more people are getting, and unfortunately it's polarized, but they're getting excited about the political process and trying to make a difference because they understand, look at the Senate race in Alabama. Only less than 40% of the people in that state voted.
Yeah, we covered that.
Only less than 40% of the people in the state of Alabama voted. And they said that was a good turnout for a special election. Yep. And I think people need to understand that every vote counts. I mean, there was a state rep, or whatever they call it in Virginia, where they tossed a coin this morning, I think. I don't know what ended up happening with that because they tied.
And I think that was going to decide the control of the General Assembly in Virginia.
Literally control the General Assembly there. And we always hear, it doesn't matter if I don't vote. It doesn't matter if I don't show up. Let somebody else worry about it. Well, you know what? The responsibility for our country is us.
Right.
We have to stand up and be responsible for it. And that's part of the reason I decided to run. I mean, I could sit back and watch and complain and whine and tweet and do all those things, but the way that you solve problems in this country is by standing up for what you believe in.
Absolutely.
So we're at that point in the show anyway where we kind of get to the final thoughts. Is there anything else about your campaign that we've left out, or something, a plank that we have not gotten to that you want people to hear about?
I think I covered my three major planks. It's rural jobs and development, it's education, and it's finding a solution to the medical insurance problem. I call for Medicare for all. Obamacare was never meant to be a solution. It was thrown together over 16 months. Actually, wasn't just an overnight thing, but it was thrown together based on a lot of different, breakdowns and saying, I'll give you this and you give me that and you give me this. It worked to a certain extent, but it didn't work completely. I think that's important. And the other thing is we've got to work on supporting public education.
How do people get in touch if they want to volunteer for the campaign, kick in some cash to get you up to a far distant location like Newcastle?
Well, if you have a spare $1 million to send to my campaign,
there's a very good chance you're going to have what as Jonathan Lamb called a 900-pound gorilla in this race on the other side.
I look forward to that. I think the easiest, not the easiest, but the best person to run against is the hardest. And I think if Mr. Pence wins his primary, I think he would be a worthy opponent. I like some other Republicans that were running. Kreider, who just got out of the race, was a strong state senator. Your friend Nate Lamar, I think, would have, I like local government people. I like people who know people on the ground, and they're not running because of ideology particularly, but because they want to do a good job.
Their brother's vice president, or that sort of minor detail.
Yeah, that's a minor detail.
No, he's a Marine. I watched the
he's a Marine.
I watched just like
Todd
Young.
Well, worked for Todd Young.
Yeah.
So I worked for Todd Young. I'll tell you what, I have two brother-in-laws that are Marines.
He got it.
My daughter's dating a Marine who's in boot camp right now. My son's an Army captain, so he's not a Marine. My daughter-in-law's an Army captain. We have a lot of military people in the family. I certainly respect and honor the service of anyone who steps up for this country. But it takes a lot more than that. And I'll frankly tell you, my problem with Luke Messer was Luke Messer did not come to my town and did not hold a public meeting. He did not come around and say, hey, what are the issues we need to know about? I'm spoiled. I grew up with Lee Hamilton as my congressman. He was a guy who was respected on both sides of the aisle. Yeah. But he's also a person who came back to Little Rising Sun and Little Vivi and all these little communities every year and every time that there was something going on to talk to the people. And if I'm elected to Congress, that's my main goal, is to get around to talk to people and listen to them and take their concerns up and be an advocate for them in Washington, D.C. And I think that's the most important thing that any congressperson can do. I mean, they're supposed to be the federal government that's closest to the people. They're closest to the people. I need to know them. And quite frankly, I don't think Luke Messer did a good job at that.
Well, I had $1 million, but then you wanted to get rid of snow days,
Yeah.
so I'm just going to put it into Litecoin.
Well, you're limited. You can't make that large of a contribution. You'd have to start some kind of corporation or something like that.
It doesn't stop your friends on Wall Street.
It does not. Or remember, I don't have friends on Wall Street. Probably what I said here today probably lost a few if there ever going to be any friends on Wall Street. But I'm not assuming there's going to be friends on Wall Street. If you want to contact my campaign, go to lanesiekman.com, LaneSiekman.com. I'm also on Twitter at Lane Siekman and on Facebook at Lane Siekman. So just look for my name online. Just Google me or ask your Alexa, and I'm sure she can find me. And there's a contribution page on there. There's a volunteer page on there. There's an update page on there if you want to get messages from me of what's going on. We talked about medical marijuana. I've got a press release that's going out on that after the new year. We held off on it. There's a little bit of it on my Facebook page, but I haven't really gone public with it. I think every issue, and my problem is probably I try to put too much detail into my answers. But the thing is, I think people want that now. I mean, we're used to being able to research every issue on the internet and find out everything we can about everything that's going on. And I think it's important that a candidate put that information out for the people.
So is there one Democrat in Congress that you most closely align with? If you can say there's one, for me, it'd be Thomas Massey in Kentucky would be my ideal, congressman if I'm picking somebody, or Justin Amash in Michigan. Is there a role model for you, or is the first person you're going to go try to have a caucus with?
When I decided to run for Congress in 2012, there were two people I called up to ask for their advice, and one was Birch Bayh, and the other was Lee Hamilton. And both of those gentlemen had a long history in the state of Indiana. And they understand that when you go to Congress, you have to represent the people that sent you. And it's important to always remember that. Is there anybody in the current Congress? Not that I can name off the top of my head. I mean, I told you Bernie Sanders is, I like his platform and some of the things he's talked about. I don't consider myself a socialist. I do believe in capitalism, but I think capitalism needs breaks. Have you ever finished a game of Monopoly without somebody getting upset?
I have, because I cheat.
Yeah. Well, believe it or not, that's a little bit how capitalism works too.
If Monopoly gets you upset, I don't know if your skin's quite thick enough for Congress yet. I don't know.
No, I play to the end. It's just the other people.
It's everybody else who's throwing.
It's all the losers.
It's a tough game. Yeah, it's all those losers out there.
All the low energy non-bankers.
That's right. Yeah, the key is to be the banker. No.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being with us, Lane. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate coming up here.
Awesome. Well, hopefully this wasn't too uncomfortable.
But it's cold out there.
I know it is. Maybe when you're in Congress, we'll have all of these.
You'll do something about the weather.
These solar panels that are going to have residual heat.
Are you implying geoengineering by use of chemtrails, Jeremiah?
Oh, boy.
I don't know about that. We made it an hour and 20 minutes before Dakota got the tinfoil hat out. Spangle, you have any final thoughts for us? Something to pitch? You got a show that you do. Probably you want to have people listen to that once in a while.
Yes, We Are Libertarians. It is a conversation about the news and politics from a libertarian perspective. And we take the big topics in the news and then break them down, give you all sides, and then give our opinion of it. And you can find it at wearelibertarians.com. If you've got an Echo or a Google Home, then you can just say, Alexa, play We Are Libertarians, and then you'll hear my beautiful voice start talking to you. It automatically plays We Are Libertarians Radio. And not tomorrow, Friday, we're actually doing an experiment where we're going to try and get some exposure and money raised for libertarian-leaning candidates where two candidates will face off and answer my questions, and then we'll be judged by a couple of political experts, and then the winner gets some money.
So it's the Spangle horse race.
Essentially, that might be a good idea. The We Are Libertarians horse race. I like that. I might steal that from you.
There you go. I give that to you as your gift for showing up.
Yeah. So we're doing a test episode on Friday, so that should be interesting. And check it out. WeAreLibertarians.com.
And then the Chris Spangle Show, you had 2 new episodes that were great. If anybody's interested in podcasting or broadcasting, that just dropped this week as well, that I listened to on Christmas Day on my travels around the state.
Yeah. If you want to know about podcasting, and I've built an audience of an average of 7,000 an episode twice a week, and tens of thousands of people online. And if you want to learn how I did it, impart all of my wisdom on the Chris Spangle Show.
Very good. Dakota.
My final thoughts are going to be a little bit of Newcastle news real quick. The front page of the Courier-Times today said that the Porthole Lounge was finally going to get demolished, which it is right down the road from my house. It is.
It's as close to your house as Kentucky is to Lane's.
Yeah, and it is. Those of you who don't know, this building actually was the first bar and grill in Newcastle, Indiana. That ended up going through several different ownerships. It looks like a neat building, right? And you've seen the pictures of the inside. But now it has been a dump for about 6-7 years.
Yeah, I can't. In my adult life, I don't ever remember going in there. I don't know that I ever went in the building.
Yeah, so they just announced finally that it's going to get torn down. And now, of course, there's the outrage, right? So maybe Boss Hog of Liberty might be covering a coming city council meeting where people are protesting the Porthole Lounge to not be torn down.
Maybe the Memorial Park Board should relocate the Doughboy to the Porthole statue, the Porthole site,
and put a windmill on top.
And put a windmill on top of it, tying all of the controversies of the county into one tidy little pile.
Absolutely.
Dakota at bosshogliberty.com.
Dakota at bosshogliberty.com, or you can find me at AtocadSavant on Twitter and Dakota Davis on Facebook. It is my lovely face smiling at you from Morty's Comedy Joint.
There we go. So I want to thank everybody for listening. As always, like and subscribe. We're on iTunes. Next week's episode, we'll have Mike Kreider, state senator, on the show. We'll be broadcasting on Thursday next week, so 8 short days. We'll be back with another episode of Boss Hog of Liberty. You can email me, Morrell at bosshogliberty.com, or Jeremiah at bosshogliberty.com, Morrell at wearelibertarians.com, right. I think is the way you find me. If you've got comments on the show, let us know. Let us know what you think. Are we too long? Did you never get to this part of the show? It's just impossible. We try to do a long-form show, but we do want your input and your ideas and your thoughts. So drop us a line on there. Share the episodes. That's the way we grow. We will see you all next time.
Thank you for listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Get our other shows at wearelibertarians.com.